Hi and welcome to the very first episode of Straight Talking Sport. I'm Ryan Hodge and I'm with Grant Elliott.
Hello.
Kieran Pick.
Hi.
And John Winchester.
Hey there.
We are 4 second-year sports journalism students at Southampton Solent University. Each week we'll be bringing you a podcast relating to a variety of sporting topics from the past week and previewing what will be going on at the weekend to follow. First topic this afternoon, England World Cup qualifiers, Montenegro, Poland. Montenegro on Friday. Early thoughts?
We haven't been consistent during qualifying, but I think if we play like we did against Ukraine in our last qualifier, then I think we're going to make things tough on ourselves. I think we just need to go out there. We're at home. You know, we're going to have the crowd behind us. They're going to be the 12th man, so to speak. And I think they're just going to get behind us. We need to attack from kick-off and really show Montenegro that we're there to qualify, not just settle for a draw.
Okay, Kieran?
Basically, I'm looking for us to just keep the ball better. I remember after Euro 2012, Roy Hodgson made quite a clear statement that that's how he was going to take the side forward, trying to get the team to retain possession and control matches. I haven't seen him do that. Now he's got 2 biggest games since he's taken over England. That's what he needs to do to prove that he's taken the side forward, in my opinion.
John, your thoughts?
Obviously depends which England team turns up. I mean, Montenegro, a great side. They've got a few good players in their team. But I mean, if we turn up, obviously we're probably going to win by maybe a couple of goals. But there are times where we haven't turned up. I mean, we drew away there. We've drawn a couple of times, and we generally haven't been playing like attractive football on occasion. So I think people will be looking for a performance more as well as a result.
What sort of threats do you think Montenegro pose? I mean, they've got 2 top-class strikers in Stefan Jovetic and Mirko Vucinic. But other than that, you know, they're kind of lacking elsewhere in the defence and midfield. There's no star-quality names. Do you think that if Joe Hart is, if he keeps his inconsistencies of the past few weeks, and you know Jovetic, who knows Joe Hart from Man City, and Mirko Vucinic, if they're on form, if they're on fire, do you think they could punish England?
Maybe Vucinic more than Jovetic. Jovetic hasn't quite played a whole game, I don't think, yet for City this season. He's lacking a bit of match fitness, which could, well, it's going to work to England's advantage. I don't see him scoring, to be honest. I don't see him. I think if they're going to get anything, I think it'd be a draw most.
If you don't think, and maybe Montenegro might not think they'll score, do you think they'll just try and make things hard for England, you know? Or reverse that around, do you think England will just try and, you know, happy for a 1-2-0 win, knowing that, you know, Jovetic isn't match fit, so they're not going to be posing an offensive threat?
If England don't take this game seriously, Montenegro will beat England. Although they haven't got the big names in the midfield or defence, they're a team that will trouble us. I think so far this campaign the defence has actually been pretty good and pretty consistent. So if we can keep a clean sheet, I would back us to actually win rather than draw at Wembley.
I think you got Jovetic, who's joined Man City. He's going to have a bit more knowledge than previous games of some of the England players. Like if Milner or Hart plays, he's going to have some practice against them. I also think that when they play Poland, Boric, obviously he's Ricky Lambert's been one of our most potent players recently, but he has quite a big knowledge that he can take back to the team, as can Jovetic. So you can't rule them out. I don't think you can rule them out. Obviously, they have taken points out of us before. They can do it again. It all depends what team you bring, really. Yeah.
I mean, going back to what you said about Ricky Lambert and Artur Buric, I don't think, you know, hopefully Rooney and Sturridge will stay fit. So I don't think Lambert will be starting the match. He might come on for a 15, 20, 30-minute cameo.
I can't see him playing against Poland because Boric probably saves shots from him or takes shots from him every week or so. But hopefully we can bring out a side that can challenge both teams and that can have a performance.
Go on.
To be honest, I don't think Lambert's going to start either of the games, to be honest. I mean, he's done well for England. He's done well for Southampton over the last 2 or 3 years, but I think Hodgson's going to pick Rooney and Sturridge to start, and maybe put Welbeck on the left against Poland. I think he'll put Milner on the left against Montenegro because he'll work more defensively
He's more
than what Welbeck
industrial.
would. Yeah, he is. He's more versatile. So I think Milner will probably get the nod to play left wing against Montenegro, maybe Welbeck against Poland. But up front, I think it's going to be Sturridge and Rooney. I mean, you'd be silly not to pick them on the form that they're going at the moment in the Premier League.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, press conferences happening in the build-up to these qualifiers. Jack Wilshere stated a few days ago that he only thinks fully English players should be representing the England national squad. Some people have claimed this is in reply to the rumours that Adnan Januzaj could play for England, the rumours that Roy Hodgson might be thinking of selecting him, but the problem is he's only been in the country for a couple of years and he needs to wait 3 more years until he can become an England national player, gain an English citizenship. What do you think about fully English? Do you think fully English players should only play for England, or do you think that players from a different culture that have either got English blood in them or spent a bit of time in England to gain citizenship, do you think they should be picked for the squads?
Personally, I would say no. I would prefer a fully English team. I understand why they've done it, because at the moment the talent pool in the Premier League alone is not very big. I think as announced, only a third of the players playing in the Premier League so far this season are English. So I understand why they're trying to do it. But in Januzaj's case, you're telling a young player just rise into the game, oh, you can't play international football for 3 years. As a player, I wouldn't want that. I'd probably, if I was him, I'd probably go for Belgium or Albania.
I was just about to come to that. Do you think he'd be more likely to choose Belgium over England, given that Belgium, they've got a potentially great side on their hands. They've got a lot of young players, a number of who play in the Premier League. Do you think he'll eventually, rather than wait 3 years to be representing England, as soon as he gets a Belgium call-up, or if he gets a Belgium call-up, do you think he'd rather represent them?
It's difficult. I mean, he was born in Brussels, so obviously that's why he's eligible to play for Belgium. But his dad's from Albania, so it's rumoured that he's going to be picking between Belgium and Albania, the 2 countries that he's going to pick. But I mean, yeah, like touching what Kieran said, it's hard to tell a player, look, if you have to wait 3 years before you can play international football, and even then you're not guaranteed to actually get into the side. I mean, I know we've been lacking the left winger, but there might be another couple of players that come up through the next 2 or 3 years that might get the nod ahead of him, and it's hard to tell a player to wait.
Moving on from Januzaj, another left-sided concern at the minute for England, Ashley Cole was injured in Chelsea's game at the weekend against Norwich. Problem or no?
I think our left-back position is probably our most what's the word?
Stocked.
Yeah, well-stocked position. Because we've got Ashley Cole, we've got Leighton Baines, Shaw. We've got quite a few players in that position that can fill it. Baines is probably the most in form at the moment. With Cole out, this is probably his main chance to perform ahead of the World Cup, to prove that he can be a little bit more defensive, because we'll probably need that in these games. But if he can keep knocking them in for Everton, he's obviously going to make the World Cup squad next year, I believe. But main concern for Roy Hodgson, obviously, I don't think is left back. I think it's other areas of the pitch, like the midfield, maybe even up front, or centre backs. I don't know, or even goalkeeper. But I don't think left back is a concern for him at all.
Okay, wrapping up the football. Will England qualify for Brazil 2014? Quick yes or no reply.
Yeah, I think we'll do enough to get through.
Just about, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say bare minimum. Yes.
Okay, moving on from the football. Japanese Grand Prix this weekend in Suzuka. I'll be throwing this more out to John rather than Kieran and Grant. John's got a bit more knowledge than all 3 of us put together, admittedly. John, what are you expecting to see this weekend?
Well, it's going to be hard to see anything more than a Vettel win. He's won the last 4 races. He usually goes well in Japan. Well, Mercedes, they're there on Saturday, but not so much on Sunday. Ferrari, the opposite. They don't qualify well. They're usually down about 6th place or even lower, but then they move up in the races. Lotus are probably their closest challengers, but they're not consistent on Saturday either. And well, obviously his Vettel's teammate Mark Webber, he's not really been there this season. This year, he's only been on the podium a couple of times. So whoever takes a fight to Vettel this weekend, if anyone, I think that'd be a lot more. Oh, whoever can, it'll be good. Alonso needs to finish in 8th or above if Vettel wins. Otherwise, Vettel's already on the title. So,
okay. I think we can probably assume that Sebastian Vettel will become, a quadruple world champion, if not this weekend, a race or two's time. This question's mainly for Kieran and Grant. As casual F1 fans, non-passionate F1 fans, is the Vettel and Red Bull dominance, is it making the sport of F1 boring? That's what Lewis Hamilton came out and said the other day. He might have retracted those comments later in somewhat way. But do you think, for one man or one team to dominate a certain sport in the way that Vettel and Red Bull are, is it driving the casual fan away?
It can do. Yeah, Vettel's won the last 4 races, and that doesn't help the sport, I don't think. And it's great for Vettel, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's great driving, and he's done really well, but I think it sort of takes it away from the sport. Like last season, there was the first 7 races, we had 7 different winners, and that made it, the World Championship was blown wide open, and it was a case of, well, who's going to win it? But it sort of reminds me of when Michael Schumacher won the World Championship a few years in a row. It sort of took it away from the sport, because you had this knowledge that you're pretty sure that Schumacher's going to end up winning the race or the majority of the races. I don't think Alonso's going to finish lower than 8th this weekend. I think it's a question of when Vettel wins it, not who.
Okay, Kieran?
Yeah, I'm not the most avid fan of F1, but I do quite like watching it. But this season I've struggled to have an interest in it. As soon as I see Vettel's reach the front of the grid, I tend to turn off, to be honest. Like Grant said, it was a bit different last year. There was an air of unpredictability about it. This season there hasn't been that, and ultimately it does reflect badly on the sport.
John, I think you've mentioned before that outside of Vettel's dominance, there's kind of often Grand Prix within a Grand Prix, with true racing and drama and things to look out for.
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot about the non-Vettel Grand Prix, where the rest of the field behind basically have a fantastic race while Vettel leaps off and wins it. But that's not his fault. He's obviously been the strongest car this year by a country mile. The way you posed that previous question was rather like you're asking him to slow down. I don't think that should be the case. I think the other team should be speeding up. The car is, well, it's racing, so it's obviously legal. There's nothing wrong with it, and the other team should get their heads wrapped around the cars and try and catch him up.
So you think it's more of a case of, rather than Vettel being dominant, the 21 other drivers and the 10 other teams, they're not doing enough to put pressure on Red Bull and Vettel?
Well, you would have thought, well, if Vettel runs away with it the last few races, Webber would have been right behind him, but that just hasn't been the case. I think he's unlocked something, like the combination of car and driver is just second to none compared to everyone else. Yeah, and I think next year with a few more rule changes, the engine changes, hopefully with Mercedes spending a lot of time on it, they've been quite loud about spending a lot of time on next year's car. Ferrari changing their technical team around. Hopefully next year's championship should be a lot more closer.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Moving on to tennis, Laura Robson was knocked out of the Japan Open earlier this week. Do you think the media is hyping the potential and the talent of Robson up too much because of what we've seen from Murray over the past year and a half? Do you think she's being perceived as better than what she is?
Definitely. Since Murray has won US Open and Wimbledon, I think the whole nation's interest in tennis has increased. but ultimately that has put more pressure on the other British players. It's quite easy to forget how young Robson is. She's still 19. She's got a lot of years ahead of her to improve, and although you can't say, oh, she's going to win a Grand Slam in the next 10 years or so, I do expect her to reach the latter stage of a Grand Slam within, well, at some point in her career. Maybe not a final, but definitely quarterfinals, semi-finals.
I mean, when Murray first came onto the scene, 2005 was his first Wimbledon Championships. It took, 3, 4, 5 years. Well, it took like 7 years for him to win his first Grand Slam, but 3 years to truly announce himself as one of the top 10 players, and then another couple of years to, now we talk about a top 4, with Djokovic and Nadal, Federer, and now Murray. Federer's kind of dropping out of it, but do you think it could be the same for Robson in the women's game?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not forget about Murray. There was a lot of expectation on him, a lot of build-up when he was young. That he was going to be the next best thing. Took him a few years to mature, but now that he has matured, I think the whole nation is fully behind him now. I think that is the case with Laura Robson. Whether or not she hits the same heights as Murray, I'm not sure, but like I say, just give her time. She's only 19. Give her another 2 or 3 years, and she might surprise a hell of a lot of people, and she might turn out with a Grand Slam championship.
I think that female tennis is not in the shadow of the male tennis at the moment, because Murray, obviously, he's brought a lot more exposure to Wimbledon sport. But female tennis really need to up their game. Like Heather Watson's only won 2 of her last 11 matches. I don't think that's good enough if you want to be one of the top players. I think she's dropped out the top 100 now. But going out the first round as well is if you want to be a top player in 2 or 3 years, going out in the first round, you have to question whether your preparations for each match and whether you think it's going to be an easy game or not. But I think they should be starting to do better than that if they want to be challenging in 2 or 3 years.
Is that not putting more pressure on her, though? Would you have said that before Murray had won Wimbledon and the US Open? Because the women's game's not been in a very good... We've not had a really good female player for years and years.
No.
So I think it is putting a little bit too much pressure on her too early in her career to expect her to win every...
Oh, I'm not saying they should win, because you've got some fantastic players in there, like Serena Williams is winning quite a lot at the moment. But if you're going out in the first round and people are saying in 2 or 3 years they're going to be challenging, not winning, challenging, and you're going out in the first round, you've got to question how they're preparing for the games, the team around them as well, and their mindset.
Okay. To wrap things up now, we'll be talking a little bit about the Ashes in the winter. It was announced that in the test in Australia, hotspot won't be available for the DRS, the decision review system. Your thoughts on that, please?
I mean, it was a bit controversial in the last Ashes series test. There's a few decisions where the hotspot actually got it wrong. I'm not sure. It's just another one of those things. Is technology improving sport, or is it taking away the drama, or is it adding to drama of sport? To be honest, I'm not too sure, but I think they need to get hotspot 100% correct before they start using it in real cricket professional matches.
Yeah, totally agree. In my opinion, cricket's one of the few sports where technology's improved the dramatical aspect to the sport. If I always think if there is an fifth Ashes test, final day, Australia need 300 runs. If Michael Clarke's just been given out for LBW or something and he refers it just adds that little bit of drama that you don't actually see in many other sports. And that is all down to technology.
I mean, especially for Test cricket, there are its critics saying it's too boring, it's losing popularity compared to ODIs in 2020. So although there is that drama in those shorter formats, especially in the Test, when you're playing 5 day tests and there's 5 tests just one like 5-minute interval so they can check a review, you know, it does interest a lot of casual fans into Test cricket.
It might do because it adds drama to it. I mean, casual fans they don't tune in to watch the technical shots of blocking and really
hard ground cricket.
Yeah, hard ground cricket. They want to see 4s and 6s and all of that, and that's why they tune to 2020 and ODIs, because you're more likely to see it. There's no denying about that. But Test cricket, that is, in my view, it is proper cricket. It is technical. You have to be so technically good to be able to play Test cricket. It adds drama, but people that watch Test cricket, I don't think it's really going to make too much of a difference.
I mean, I don't think there's an argument. Kieran mentioned that there's only a handful of sports which technologies like what is there is in cricket has helped the sport. Rugby union, rugby league, and tennis with the Hawkeye. Thinking more on a wider scale, do you think that technology really is what's needed for sport to get decisions right?
Yeah, obviously. There's been times in sport where a contentious issue has been there, like last-minute goals, red cards, and they're big talking points of the match. And if a referee or umpire gets a decision wrong, then that's had an impact on the match. So I think technology, maybe not like to use all the time, but Hawkeye especially is a great example where they can only use it a few times a match. If they get it wrong, they don't get any more, so they can't use it every time they lose a point, say. That's a great example. So not like the overuse of it, but in moderation, I think that's a great aspect to the sport.
Okay. Any other comments? No? All right. That'll wrap up the very first episode of Straight Talking Sport. Next week, I believe Grant will be the host. I'll be on the panel, so to speak. You can follow all of us on Twitter. I am at Ryan J. Hodge. Grant is at GDE93. Kieran is at the Kieran Pick, spelled KYRAN. And John is at JohnWin51. If you've got any comments or feedback, our email address is at straighttalkingsport@gmail.com. Excuse me. And I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Look out for the next episode next week. Thank you for listening.